talk about not St. Patrick's Day, but an event that is held the weekend before St. Patrick's Day, and some work I've been doing with downtown bar owners, a handful of them, and police chief, and Stephanie's been able to join us for a couple of those discussions. And the goal is to allow these businesses to continue to operate and make a living, but not have unintended consequences of having extraordinarily large congregations of patrons outside and doing inappropriate things outside. So we've met with the owners of McMurphy's and Stackers, and urge them, and to their great credit, they've been attempting to be very responsive to this and coming up with they'll be open for business regular hours on Saturday, March 9th, but in a way to not encourage excessive numbers from waiting to get in outside, basically doing a ticketing process that within the limits of their occupancy limits for the early parts of the day, beginning at 11 a.m. with a couple of ticketed entries between 11 a.m. Up until 3 p.m. We'll also have additional police presence in the downtown to try to have that day occur so that all those who want to be in the downtown and do business in the downtown can do their thing and get the most out of it.
Thank you. And I'll just add to that emphasizing the point of how cooperative the folks from McMurphy's and Stackers have been on this. We met with them last year after the event to say, okay, this was kind of a mess. What do we do to make it better? And we met with them a couple of weeks ago to say, okay, all the stuff we talked about before, are we ready? How's this going to work? So they have really been terrific partners. They're doing great messaging about this. They've got great big signs outside on their windows right now talking about the whole plan for that day, which is next Saturday, March 9th. They're also doing all of the messaging about it on their Facebook pages, so people are aware. And I want to emphasize that I believe this is the 14th year of this occasion as it's been being celebrated. This only kind of grew into a problem in the last couple of years. For many years, this just kind of went on and nobody even paid any attention to it. Part of that is the social media just kind of increases everything exponentially, and part of it is just kind of the culture has changed. And so what I really want to emphasize is that this is no longer just a bar event. This is really kind of a collegiate event that is marked all over the country. The problem does not start or end with people marking the occasion at the bars. So it's important to not place blame inappropriately to this. We could, there are all kinds of articles out there about what has happened in other places. Pennsylvania, State College, Pennsylvania has a big marking of this occasion. They do theirs this year, at least they did it in February. They call it St. Patrick's Day, and they actually paid all of the retail establishments, anybody with a liquor license, whether it was a package store, a restaurant, or a bar, to not sell alcohol on that day. It cost them almost $200,000, and that reduced their arrests by a third, which sounds good, but they still had a couple hundred arrests. So this is what my point is. You don't need the liquor outlets on that day for this to be an occasion. So I just want to kind of have people keep this in perspective. I believe the university is going to be messaging to the students about expectations for this. I think that the new strictures that we've put in place are definitely going to help, especially in the downtown. Then there are other factors that we just don't know, like weather. If it's a beautiful spring day, then there are going to be a lot more people wanting to participate in this, and there are going to be a lot more regular families downtown going about their business. Whereas if it's cold and drizzly, that much more of all of us will stay home. So it's very hard to know. But we are we and the businesses take the community concerns very seriously about this, and we are trying to get this back under control and into something that everyone can enjoy safely. So, Ms. Brewer.
Appreciating all of that positive messaging, and really, because I know you're approaching it from a bunch of different directions, and really some of the mail that we get about this sort of thing, one of which I didn't even open today, is kind of the same thing we're hearing associated with safe and healthy neighborhoods. We're working on it, give us a little time, we're working on this, oh yeah, whatever. And people are just out to criticize. And so we'll see how this year goes. I think that it is important for people in the community to also understand that in addition to all this positive messaging, were things to be the same as last year or worse, there's every possibility that we would consider not selling alcohol that day, or insisting that private security be hired, or there are other draconian things that can be done which have limited success perhaps other places. We are not just saying I'm sure it'll work out better this year. It's that you're having these conversations, we're assuming things are going to be a little better, there's only so much control we have, but there are other measures we could consider in the future, but they don't seem to be appropriate right now. I think that's an important thing for people to understand, because it's one thing to say, well, we'll have extra police there. Why should our police be there if it's just people lining up outside the bar 50 deep and people can't get by them on the sidewalk? Why is that our problem? So, in terms of dealing with that level of resentment and that kind of criticism, I think it's just, I think we're saying we continue to have this conversation. And we didn't need to have it until a couple of years ago, like you pointed out. Life is changing on so many levels, and we are certainly hoping that everything will go better this year. And if it doesn't, then we'll continue to have the conversation, and maybe there will be some other things, but rather than saying, oh, well, the obvious solution to do X is to just do this draconian thing, I think it's smart that we're not doing that, but that we have those options still theoretically available to us in future.
All right. So I think the most important point is that we continue to monitor it and see how it goes. Draconian is actually way more complicated than you might think off the top of your head. So
I'm sure.
So whether we would go down that road, and so that's partially what I was saying about, this isn't just about the bars and restaurants. So the question of who you hold responsible for what kind of behavior when the people aren't even in the establishment, they've never even been in there. This is now kind of a pseudo event, a pseudo holiday that has its own infrastructure around it. So
a life of its own.
We'll see what dials we could continue to turn if necessary, but hopefully with all of the messaging, with the steps that have been taken, this will be in a better place. The other thing I want to emphasize is, because this is a point of confusion every year, no bars or restaurants will open early on that day. Everyone will only open at their licensed time. They would be in violation of their liquor license if they opened early. No one has requested to open early. If they did, I'm sure we would not approve it, considering the circumstances. The police chief and the officers go around and speak to all of the establishments leading up to this, just to remind everyone, you're absolutely not opening early or you're being shut down. There's a great deal of communication and coordination that happens for this event. They did not open early last year. There's just no... So part of the idea is that the people lining up outside makes people think that it's open, but it's not.
Right.
So just because people are lined up doesn't mean that they are open. At the same time, part of the messaging from Stackers and McMurphy's is don't even bother getting in line if you don't have a ticket. And if you do have a ticket, then you can't get in line before half an hour early. But they are... being ticket-based, they are only selling up to capacity for an 11 o'clock opening, and then later for a 1 o'clock opening. If there is capacity, people leave between 11 and 1, too bad. Nobody's going in again until the next bunch of tickets start at 1 o'clock. So it a lot of thought has been given to this, and this won't be perfection. It won't be some silver bullet, but it should be progress, and it certainly has been great cooperation. So
it's great to hear.
All right, moving on.
Great. Without